And it relates to the sign behind me, and it's because of a conversation I had with a buddy of mine on Saturday. The sign behind me, for those listening, says "Matter not magic," and it does not relate to my Santa hat, which is clearly magic. How do I kick this off? So we're very comfortable in modern society, and we have lots of things that we take for granted, which I know sounds very vague, but let me get specific. All of the green technology that people talk about, and the phone that you use, and your computer, and your car, and the stuff that plays Netflix for you, and your TV, and all of your little devices, and your little Fitbit, and all your stuff. And not just your consumer products, but the fertilizer that agriculture uses so that you can get your food at the store, and GPS equipment, and entire supply chains, and like entire businesses, all the stuff that makes modern life livable, and makes our standard, the standard of living as high as it is. All that stuff, it's not magic. They're not magic things. And I know that sounds trite, but you know how people used to go out, and people still do this. They say, well, I want to get back to nature. I want to go take a hike to remind me, like, get back to nature, right? I want to go, or people will even talk about, remember where your food comes from. And they focus on the fact that there's a plant, and, the sun and water, and, okay, that's nice. It's good to remember that, the sun is important, and plants are important, and animals are important. That's all nice. But you know what's also really important, actually critical to every single person listening, is, and this is going to sound lame, rare earth metals. Mining generally, but rare earth metals. Rare earth metals, and they're my friend informed me they're not actually rare, they're just named rare earth metals, which is good, I guess. They include things like neodymium, cerium, lanthanum, stuff that you probably haven't heard of. Stuff like I don't think you can see my periodic table, but stuff way over in the areas of the periodic table that you ignored when you were in junior high school doing chemistry, right? All that stuff is actually super important. In fact, I just to give you an idea of how important some of this stuff is that you maybe don't think about very much. Let's see. Cerium goes into automotive catalytic converters, glass screens on electronic devices. Lanthanum is used for fuel cells, batteries, catalysts for refining petroleum. By the way, all plastics come from petroleum refinement, so anything in your life that's plastic. All this stuff, obviously neodymium and other metals used for motors, generators, sensors, disk drives. Everything about your life requires that someone rip a metal out of the ground and undergo actually kind of an extensive processing process to refine that metal so that you can use it. And so that it can be in your cell phone or whatever. And I know this sounds really lame to think that we should care about this. However, because we live in a culture which vilifies it kind of vilifies things like mining, right? Like kids like, oh, bad for the environment, bad for this, blah, 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 blah. And they have this fantasy world where we're going to have solar panels, right? Which require, or windmills, which require huge amounts of this stuff, right? We are in a situation now in which basically China controls all of it. Basically China. A few other spots, but almost all controlled by China. And so my friend was telling me some problems that he was having with this. And I looked up because I was like, okay, well, let me see if this is true. So I looked up the article that I found immediately. I didn't realize the date at first, which I'll tell you in a minute. But the article that I looked up immediately said, okay, well, how much is controlled by China? I mean, is it all of it? This article says, today, 90% of the world's rare earths are produced in China. It would be closer to 100%, but for Molycorp's output of cerium, lanthanum, neodymium, and praseodymium. I can't even, oxides and carbonates. And then I looked back here and went, oh, this is from 2015. And then I clicked on Molycorp. Oops, they went out of business.
Oh, wow.
It turns out they were purchased. They were using this mine, the Mountain Pass mine. It's the only rare earth mining and processing facility in all of the United States. The only one. Jeff Green, a rare earth lobbyist, said we are going to be 100% reliant on the Chinese to make the components for the defense supply chain. That's nice. That's nice. That's where we are. And I don't want to go into too much depth about the mining industry because I know that's not what people necessarily want to hear, and I'm not actually prepared to go too much into it. But one of the problems that we've got is we have technical expertise gone. It's all in China, all of it. Here's a quote from the people that are operating that mine now. He's talking about China, and he says, quote, they actually have a lot of knowledge on rare earths that, quite frankly, over the years, the U.S. has unfortunately lost. They actually mine their stuff, and they ship it to China to be processed because we can't process it here. One of the reasons we can't process it here, one of the reasons we can't process it is we've lost the knowledge. One of the reasons we lost the knowledge is all the not in my backyard regulations on everything, all of the overreaction, all of the hypersensitive overreaction to anything to do with mining and caustic chemicals and processing, all of that. Because we overreact to everything, no one can get permits. The industry has been complaining about permits for decades. No one can get permits. You can't get a permit. It takes 5 times longer to get to permit a mine in the US than it does in Canada or Australia. So, and that's just the mine. I don't know what the processing, I have no idea. So you've got this, we have this modern society built on all of these devices that we have basically outlawed, for all intents and purposes, we've basically regulated away and or outlawed the ability to produce the raw materials necessary to make everything that we rely on. And they're all being made by China. They're all being made by China. So here's the process that really bothers me. We regulate this stuff away, and then we have experts come in and say, oh, well, now it's a national defense problem. Now, of course, it's not just a national defense problem. It's like a general problem that it's regulated away. But okay, now it's a national defense problem. So what's the solution? It's never to deregulate it. It's never to be like, oops, we shouldn't have done this. We should make it easier, blah, blah, blah. We should get out of the way. It's, well, now we have to get involved in the production. Now we have to subsidize it. Now the defense industry needs to be involved in the making of it. This is how things become authoritarian and social. This is one of the paths of getting to authoritarianism is you tighten things down until they're unworkable. They go somewhere else. Now it's a national defense problem. Now you justify the federal government getting involved in doing something that they didn't need to be doing at all in the first place. If they just weren't involved in the first place, we would be, and it's not like we don't have minds.
It's like, here, let us fix this problem we created.
Yes. And one of the things that my friend was complaining about was there's a personnel problem, a huge personnel problem, because no one growing up now, if you're a young person and you're thinking about what to do for your career or what majors to major in or whatever, there's a dearth of mining expertise and a dearth of processing expertise. They can't find people. They can't find people to do this. They're all in China.
They're majoring in food dance.
They're majoring in food dance. Yeah, absolutely. They're majoring in food dance. And someone said, Carter, China's an environmental disaster. That may be. I'm not saying there is an environmental impact. But the way to deal with that environmental impact is to say, okay, well, there needs to be some kind of reasonable allow, we need to figure out how to let it happen, not just ban everything, right? Nuclear power is an example of something that's been banned for no particular reason, right? I mean, it's propaganda. It's fear and propaganda. And yeah, do we have to be as dirty as China? No, I'm not suggesting that we completely dirty our environment, but we do need to let companies do things. Canada and Australia, as I mentioned earlier, their permitting for a mine takes 1/5 of the time. Well, that translates into dollars. Why is Canada a cesspool? Is Australia horribly dirty environmentally? No. This stuff is possible, but it makes me concerned because this is just one industry. It was one industry we looked at, right? And I only happen to have this conversation because my buddy is in the mining industry, right? So, he could give me some information about this. But we are experiencing, I don't want to call it a brain drain, because it's not like our smart scientists are leaving the United States to go elsewhere, which is typically what you call a brain drain. It's like a knowledge it's like knowledge atrophy. It's like brain atrophy. We're just not doing it anymore. And other people are. And so you can complain about the environmental impact of things all you want. But unless you're living in a log cabin with no electronic equipment, and no modern medicine, you're kind of being a hypocrite. We need to produce these things, and we can't rely on China to produce them. And we can't rely on other countries to build the knowledge base of the future. And that's what we're doing. I look at this and I go, my friend and I were talking, and we're like, well, there's no way America can compete in the future if this doesn't, there's no way we maintain world power status. Zero. I mean, it's basically Russia and China that do all this stuff. And what are we going to do? What are we possibly going to do? They don't have to go to war with us. They just have to not sell us the materials we need to do stuff.
Yeah. This makes me think, first of all, thank you. I had no idea about this. I think part of the problem is nobody even thinks about this stuff. And why would we? And this also relates to your point about our inability to look into the future and to project where we're going to be. And it also makes me think of earlier this year, I read an article about how much of our pharmaceuticals are produced in China. And, it just seems like we've outsourced everything to them. Somebody in chat, Wonder Freeman, says we should get James Kennedy on the show. I don't know who that is, but they said he's a top USA rare earth expert.
Oh, cool. All right.
I mean, it would be good to do a whole episode about this because
I'd like to get an expert on it. Yeah, because I have a very high level understanding and I did some internet research, but I have no mining expertise. Like I don't know about this too much. It's depressing when I look at the future of the United States and I see we're busy worrying about microaggressions.
Yeah.
And China's like, how can we more efficiently refine neodymium? Okay, they win. That's how that works in the real world, guys. All of your microaggressions in the world, all your expertise there won't make an iPhone. And actually, all of your coding in the world won't make an iPhone. You could be a code monkey all day long and the best software engineer in the world, but it runs on physical things. Everything around you, with the exception of things that are clearly organic that have grown, everything around you is stripped from the earth and processed by people like engineers with some specific discipline, either petroleum engineers, chemical engineers who are making plastics, or people, mining stuff and refining it. All this stuff is made. This stuff around you is made physically, and I think we've gotten to this point where we forget that we live in a physical world. Even your online virtual world is supported by a physical infrastructure. And if you don't have the ability to produce that physical infrastructure, you're not the one running the system, right? You're the animal. If you're not the one making the fences and providing the barn and doing all the physical things and making the grain, you're the animal. If you're just consuming it, you're the animal. And I don't know, it's just kind of scary to me. I felt a little bit better that I'm making my daughter take Mandarin, because I was like, well, maybe she'll survive in the future. She'll speak Mandarin. But I don't mean to be depressing about it, but
No, you're not depressing. This is a weighty subject, and
so
I'd like to do it.
Let's have that person on. Let's have someone on who can talk about this in detail, because it's a real issue. And my guess is this is one of a dozen real issues that we just don't. Pharmaceutical, you just brought up that. There's lots of these issues that we just don't bring up, and we are so complacent. We are so fat and lazy, and like
our whole culture is arguing about, her name is Dr. Jill Biden. Get used to it. Like, who cares?
Right.
There are actual important things. That's a presidential candidate,
Right.
That former Secretary of State is wasting her time getting into some manufactured BS, faux outrage cycle, a press cycle. That's all it is. We're constantly distracted. The social justice stuff that we push back against it is important to push back against it, because
certainly
it is a major distraction, and it is destroying this country. Not just because it's bad ideology and it's teaching us to engage in racism and sexism, but also because look at how it's just taking our attention away from things that matter. We're arguing about, one of the other SJW tweets I saw the past couple of days is this guy, an academic, of course, probably a doctor, who knows, arguing that gardening is racist. Gardening's racist. Let's have a conversation.
Right.
No. Right. I would like to hear about some things that are important that I don't know about, like this.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is, I think the thing that we are ignoring the most, if you just step back at a macro level, it's opportunity cost. The opportunity cost that our society is paying for all of this crap is immeasurable. It's into the trillions, I'm sure, easily, right? I shouldn't be doing this. I was a cryptographer. I could be doing security system stuff and there's other stuff. Do I like this? Yes, I'm interested. I'm loving learning about history, and I like learning about things and whatever. But we should be doing actual things that are productive. Generally, all of us, we should be focusing on building things and making life better for humans, developing vaccines, developing new technology, building stuff. That's what we should be doing. And instead, we're arguing about, hey, how about we just upend all of Western civilization and turn it on its head and overthrow it? And we're like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute. Instead of having to address the destroyers,
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. The destroyers, as you're calling them, the damage that they are doing just by forcing people to avert their attention to the destroyers is astronomical. It's astronomical. Our lifespan would probably be 10 years longer and would have way higher standards of living if this hadn't been going on for the past 50 years. It's crazy.